Welcome to Enjoy the Journey podcast with Aureus Financial. I'm Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, co-founder and CEO of Aureus Financial.
I'm Sam Panetta, COO and co-founder of Aureus Financial.
And we're here with Ron Haryanto.
How's it going?
He's the GM of Studios 301.
Yep.
He's been an international musician. He's been a songwriter, and he's very modest. And for some significant names in both the Australian and international community. And mate, we're here to talk about your phenomenal career and the world of music and being a hustler.
Being a hustler.
Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. Before we continue, you guys probably should come to my office and we will conduct another podcast as well. And we'll give you a crash course.
Sounds good.
As a representative of 301, I do not authorize your whole setup.
Yeah,
but you know, it's a good place to start to get the message out.
The quality of this podcast does not represent the quality of Studio 301.
Yeah.
Right, that's a disclaimer. We're finance guys. We're not music guys. We're doing our best.
We're just doing what we can, mate, to get this thing.
It's all about the movement. It's all about the movement. It's all about what you're doing.
Mate, and that's what we're here to talk about today. I think the important thing about, I guess, entrepreneurship, and the main reason why I wanted to talk to you is that there's a big correlation between, I guess, what you've done throughout your career and, I guess, the average journey of an entrepreneur who's running an SME and is hustling to try and build and grow.
Yep.
So, mate, we'd really love to kind of dive into your story and see what the journey that you've been on, mate. So tell us a bit about you.
Okay. You know what's funny? I actually usually only speak about my life and my journey in regards to the last 7 years.
Sure.
I'm 37 now. No, sorry, I'm 36. I'm 37 this week.
Happy birthday.
No, thank you. Thank you. Happy birthday in advance. Because I feel like there was a significant change in my journey where I kind of just started to get it. That really kind of changed my trajectory in regards to where I was going in my life. So, I mean, I would say from 18 to 29, 30, I was, I come out of high school. I was a musician. I was playing sports. I just started my first year of uni, and didn't really make up my mind in what I wanted to do. I was like, okay, cool. I thought I was unbeatable. I wanted to take on the world, and I thought that I could achieve everything. So I had been plucked out of high school by a big Sydney music manager, the guy that used to manage In Excess and all these other success stories.
Cool.
And put in a boy band. And, I think like everyone, I just expected everyone else to do the work for me and me to just turn up, and that's all I needed to do, because you're not really taught. I mean, well, back then, you're not really taught that you are really the one that's the master of your destiny. You just kind of, you hope that someone's going to pick you up and lead you to where you need to go. Especially me. Like, I mean, I come from pretty humble family. I just grew up with my mother in Newcastle. My dad was in my life, but I didn't grow up with him. So it's not like, we weren't an overly successful family. So I was never really shown that path. So I always just expected that if I was going to make it, I'd get a deal. A manager would come. Like, so, a lot of those things happened. Got picked up by a manager. Anyway, long story short, picked up by a manager, put in a group that kind of fizzled out. My sporting career, which I played like junior professional, that kind of fizzled out, and I got injured. Was almost failing first year of university. Had a full-time job. I was working 40 plus hours, packing shelves at Woolworths and doing stuff like that. And kind of got my first taste of burning the candle as far as biting off a lot more than I could chew. Finished uni, came out of uni with a degree, with no experience in management, couldn't get a job. So I was like, okay, cool, let's try this music thing again. Picked music back up and had basically oscillated between being a musician and working professionally all throughout my 20s. So I picked up a job in PR. I used to create and set up and manage work for the Dole programs and education programs for a company. Worked in sales. At the end, probably mid-20s, moved to Perth.
And you were still doing music this whole time as well?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think if you're a musician in Australia, I mean, if you want to make money, I think, and live comfortably, sometimes you got to do everything.
Yeah.
It was never, I would have loved to be a full-time musician. I didn't have the luxury of being in a position where I couldn't work. So it was always a case of, if I want to get money, I've got to work as well as work as a working musician, as well as trying to be an artist. So I had been trying to be an artist since I was 18. And also had bounced between manager and situation, and had an independent deal in Adelaide, and that didn't work out, and came back to Sydney, and basically what happened, did a world trip for about 27, 28, was away for about a year, was really fortunate enough to see the world, came back and was with a bit of a different perspective of, the world doesn't just revolve around being a kid in Newcastle or in Perth or wherever I was. Like it's a much bigger world. Like the be all and end all isn't doing things on the weekends and this. I just wanted something bigger and had experienced a whole bunch of world stuff. And I don't know. I started to really look into more new age theory stuff as far as what I subscribe to from a personal point of view. Quantum physics, Demartini, all that sort of stuff, and sort of set me on a journey. I think it was about at 29 where I kind of just started figuring out, or started understanding myself a bit more.
Do you think that world trip, was that the trigger? Was that the event where the way you thought sort of started to change?
I think so. I think just taking yourself out of your own environment. I think, especially if you're never taken out of your own environment, you don't really. I don't think you understand that there's things on the other side, or even in regards to there's other things happening. I mean, everything's such a little silo of your influence in your circle.
It's true.
Well, anyway, I mean, I know this is a really, really long-winded kind of circling thing, but like I said, I started understanding myself a bit more. Really got to the bottom of the crux of probably all the things that I've just been floating around through my 20s, and just basically cut the shit and was like, okay, I want to do music full-time exclusively. At the time, I was a recruitment manager for a resources company in Perth. I quit my job. I was actually between jobs, no, I lie. My contract was coming to an end. I just accepted a position to head up the white-collar division of a recruitment company in Perth, to actually manage the entire thing. I accepted. In the meantime, I was like, let's go back to Newcastle. There was an opportunity with a producer named Tom Diesel to come back and work on some of my stuff. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this one last shot. Came over, started working with him, and was like, while I was here, I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to go back. So I think it was 3 days before I was supposed to start my job, and I called up and was like, I'm not coming back.
Sorry, guys.
I'm not coming back, and made the decision to just be back here. Started in Newcastle, was there for 6 months. I'd written a big life plan, basically goals for 1 year, 5 years, lifetime goals, things that I really, really want to achieve. I'd written a big comprehensive plan. My 30th birthday ticked over, and I'd been back for probably 4 months. Within a year, I'd say I'd probably ticked off at least 50% of the list.
Extraordinary.
Wow. And it wasn't like a normal list. It wasn't like, oh, go home and be a full-time musician and do this. It it had ridiculous things on it. And I suppose you've got to understand, from where I was when I wrote the list to who I am now, I'm probably the walking embodiment of what I set out that I wanted to be when I wrote this whole life plan. I was in Perth. I was there working in a completely unrelated industry in recruitment. I knew probably the sum of half a dozen people in Sydney, one person in the music industry. I'd never lived in Sydney. I'd always lived in Newcastle. And then just took the leap and didn't take no for an answer and was like, I'm going to make this happen. I was convinced that I was going to make this happen. There was no getting in front of me. And it's funny, as certain things started to get ticked off, it was just these affirmations that were like, yeah, you can do this. And then, within 7 months, I had a number one single in Malaysia. And God knows how that happened. I mean, well, I know how it happens, but from a cold start, I did not know a song in Malaysia.
And that was a phenomenal thing. Like, so I followed your journey. We've known each other for a while, and you're pretty modest. You don't like to talk a lot about some of your accolades, and I've always admired your career of how you've gone from this simple bloke from Newcastle who was kind of doing stuff that wasn't really congruent to who you were, to taking this big leap of faith and having just this exponential growth curve. Like with your single back in the day, Time Machine, that was the single that was...
That was actually a follow-up single. That wasn't the one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were able to translate that into Indo and then launch that. And then you featured with one of the most popular recording artists at the time in Malaysia as well, right?
Yeah, so what happened was I just finished the first not even 6 months in Newcastle when I moved back, working with this producer, Tom, who we co-wrote everything together, we produced together, and through one of our mutual friends, someone come up and said there's an opportunity in Malaysia, you guys should go, because at the time I'd finished everything to a level where I was happy to start showing people. So I put together we put together an EPK, so electronic press kit, all the music, photos, website, everything. I bought myself there was a physical music directory.
Yeah.
Because you get that, so it had all the addresses of all the people, all the names of Sony, all the
heavy hitters, right?
I emailed every single person that I humanly possibly could from the directory. I said that I'll call them in the week preceding, emailed them, called them, and was just constantly following up people, hitting people with this thing. Whilst that was saying, there were two main things that I was saying in my email, that I wanted a publishing deal and I wanted a recording deal. Because those are the things that I wanted. I wanted to be an artist and I wanted to be a songwriter. And like I said, in the meantime, somebody convinced us to go to Malaysia.
Of all places.
Is that your background?
No, no, it's not. Somebody convinced.
Just a dart on the map. Yeah, there you go.
It was literally like that. I was really fortunate because I'd worked professionally previous to that, and I'd only worked 7 months of the year, so I got this huge tax back. I got this huge tax back of like 13G.
So good.
And I was like, okay, cool. So I've got this money that I can sit on that is going to enable me. For the first time in my life, I had money that enabled me to just focus on music, just focus on writing, just focus on honing my craft. And I did that because I had the money in the bank. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Flights to Malaysia, they're only cheap. Let's go. Got there, got to Malaysia, and this promise of this opportunity was like done. Like we got to Malaysia, it's like, oh yeah, we're out here, there's a project, we're in penthouses, it's going crazy, there's partying, there's all this sort of stuff. We got there and it was like, as soon as we landed, it was just like, this opportunity doesn't exist anymore. They've shut it down. Like, we're still writing the album for the biggest artist in Malaysia, but like, it's not what we sold it as. And we got there and I'm just like, oh wow, okay.
What caused that? Why
just changed that?
Man, like I think from what I gather now, I mean, like there's crazy opportunities in places like Indonesia and Malaysia. If you know the right people, it's not so much like Australia where there's this really, really tight knit network and it's the higher barriers to entry. Like if you've got the money and you've got the clout in those kind of countries, especially if you've got the talent as well, like that opens doors. So we went there anyway, and this opportunity had just fallen on its face. So I basically had to sit down and it was like a decision. It's like, do we go home or do I try to make this work? Like, I'm here. And I had just, like I said, I had just gone through, and because I think when you when you're not familiar with an environment, I think you kind of also have a bit of an advantage over everyone else. Your naivety is actually an advantage because, I didn't know when I was hitting up everyone in the music directory for Sydney, I didn't know who was who.
Mm.
So I hit up everyone. I was fearlessly just launching into, I didn't have, this guy's a big bad guy, or this guy's a dick, or this guy's a whatever. Like, I didn't have any preconceived ideas about who people were other than, Dennis Hammer and all these big people. Like, so I just hit up everyone and relentlessly, chase them. I just did the same in Malaysia, but there was no directory. So what I did was just went on the internet, scoured all of the music charts, any Malaysian artist, any local artist I could, found an email address, found a number, and just emailed and called for days. With the same collateral that I punched through Sydney, and just constantly called people, tried to take meetings with people, took as many meetings as I could with people at labels, at managers, local indie artists. One artist that I found that she was on one of the indie buzz charts in Malaysia. Her management got back to me, and I met up with her. And we met up with her, and they were like, "Yeah, we're really interested. We really love what you do." She was like an R&B artist out there, and she's like, "Oh, we've just finished an album. We've just finished an album with our producer in Indonesia. We'd really love to do something with you. It's an international collab." And I was like, "Okay." They weren't paying us, so we were like, "Well, let's do it as a collaboration." And that's the proviso. We'll do this single for you. We'll write it. We'll produce it. She co-wrote it, but I wrote the majority of it with Tom, the producer. And the proviso is that I feature on it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we did this single with this girl, Nadhira. And then we came back home. Instantly got signed by a publisher. Got put to work. Just got put to work writing. At the time, the head of the publisher was a music manager as well, so he was just utilizing us to develop all of his management interests, throwing us, we were just writing, 2 sessions a day. I'm talking writing a song in the morning with an artist, writing a song at night with an artist, not getting paid. We got paid probably the worst publishing advance in the history of anything. It was supposed to cover our legal costs, but our legal costs were 3 times the advance.
Oh, no.
And there's still not much money, but anyway, it gave us our start. It legitimized what I did. So it was, we were riding high. In the meantime, this single that we did for this girl Nadhira in Malaysia, they've already done the album. They're like, "Oh, we love the song," and the vocals that she cut on it were ridiculous. I heard it, I cried when I first heard it. I was like, "Oh wow!" She put that.
They're so good.
Yeah, it was great. It's still one of those things where she's an indie artist in Malaysia. They're like, "We love the song. We want to add it to the album. We want it to be the first single." And she's like, "We've scrounged up enough money to do a music video. We want you to fly back out and be in the video and do that." And they just pulled every favor that they could. So I went out. Everyone loves the song. We all love the song. Shot the video, come back, hits radio as an independent single from an independent artist in Malaysia, and then just started blowing up. One radio station makes it number 1, another radio station makes it number 1, another radio station makes it number 1. It's now not just on local charts, it's on the international charts, ahead of on the radio, ahead of Lady Gaga, all of that stuff. And I'm back here what is going on? You just see it climbing the charts, and then it's
what were you going through at this time? Obviously this is the first experience of you kind of
well, this is this is within like I said, the list. This is ticking off a number 1, a worldwide, and I'm like, it was, it was really tough for me because no one in Australia wanted me to be away. Just got signed to a publisher. they were like being condescending pricks about the whole scenario. No one in Malaysia is not going to get you much. Sure. I'm pretty sure the quote from the publisher was, we should all go put our deposit on our Rolls Royce now. Like that's the email that I got back, and I was just like, motherfuckers, like this is like the first instance of success I get, and this is what comes.
This is the support you guys give.
So I was just like, oh man, but it really rung true in regards to where they wanted me to be, because they'd signed us as their new songwriting production hope, and because we were just grinding out day in, day out. They wanted us here to open doors for them as a publisher. And we started very, very quickly. We ascended through to start working with some big artists. We started working at Universal and Sony. It was at the time dance pop was really big, so we were working with like Justice Crew, Damien Leith. I think we'd previously done something with Shannon Noll. We were doing stuff with Marlon Priest. And we were pitching songs to all these big artists, and working with all these big artists like Timomatic and all that sort of stuff. And it was funny because over that time I would fly out to Malaysia, do shows. We'd headline a festival, and everyone would be singing songs that I wrote, that I feature on, and I'd come back and I'd be like just this shit kicker dude that was writing songs. Like I'd come back in, fly out, saying I'm not getting paid for any of these sessions that I'm doing here. And it was just, I think it's very humbling, like especially when in a country like my tweets are getting maxed out every night, replying to people that just love it, to coming back and being so far down the rung in an industry that
huge contrast.
Huge
contrast.
Like it was kind of crazy, and I really had to kind of put my ego in check, and which is why with all this success stuff and with everyone in Sydney, it's really interesting. It's like the music industry is built on this facade, but whether you buy in on it is a completely different story. Sure. And I think a lot of people buy their own bullshit, and that's the downfall.
Well, that's the thing, mate. I think that the contrast of all of this is that the music industry is one of the toughest industries to make it than anything in the world. Yeah. And I think the industry fuels this young talent that they get caught up in the bright lights of it all, like similar to your story, that you're writing songs for like big name people. Yeah. You're in the spotlights, you're going to events, you're mingling with all the right people. And from the outside perspective, they might have thought that you were living the dream. Like everything that you'd wanted, all this hard work has just started paying off. And in reality, it's...
I remember you mentioned Time Machine before, and and it's funny too, because it was a very, very steep learning curve for me. Because in reality, I should have been in Malaysia to capitalize on it. Sure. I should have just based there, moved on it, made moves. For all of the reasons that I've said, I wasn't, because no one in Australia wanted me there. Sure. No one. I could confidently say no one wanted me there, other than my mother. Because mum's a legend.
Number one fan.
So that comes and goes, and and my ego starts rising. Like I'm the main reason this is a success, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I've got to do this follow-up single. It took me like 9 months to follow it up, which is too long. But also everything that I tried to follow up with was from Australia. And then I tried to take the product that I created in Australia and bring it back there, which is the biggest fall, because no one in Malaysia had a vested interest in it. So I went back, released a single, which is Time Machine, which is funny because I'd shot a video and the song wasn't even finished. Anyway, it finally comes out, and it kind of falls. Like a couple of radio stations pick it up, but it kind of falls flat on its face. I'm like, how did this happen?
It was a phenomenal track.
But I'm like, how did this happen? I just had a collab #1, and it was just learnt the hard lesson that to move forward, like it is all about who you collaborate with. It is all about who has a vested interest in what you're doing, because I tried to do something in a territory with no one from there, just tried to bring my team and especially all the people in Australia, like, you know, like I said, they didn't want me there in the first place. So, you know, for them to be invested heavily in something that was offshore was hard in the first place. So, I mean, I felt like just from that experience, learnt such a big lesson in what would eventually move me forward, and just the way I look at life now. Like, for me, it's like, if I want to move forward in anything, you need to be surrounding yourself with people that not only are invested and have vested interests, but like, you know, you need to actually surround yourself with a great team.
People that believe in you as well, I think. Like, I think it's a really good example of, just because you've got a really good product that you think is going to work doesn't mean it will.
Yeah, no,
and
totally.
I think that alone, you can only do so much. There's only so many hours in a day. My old man always used to tell me that. You've got only so many hours in a day. You need other people working with you in order to see something come to its fullest potential.
Yeah.
And I think that, well, I guess you've learned from hindsight, that first single that you did, just because that team had the vested interest, and probably because they were struggling as well. Like, she was an independent artist.
Everyone was hungry, man. It was like the rainy day moment for them. It was like pulling all the favors, and they did such a phenomenal job. Like, you know, the song was 10%. You know,
sure. So what happened from there, mate? I guess because I remember that you went on tour through kind of Indo and Malaysia and stuff. You were in it was a movie, an Indo movie, and
I think I just started to not unravel. I won't say unravel. You know, the facade started to wear off.
Sure.
No one cared in Australia about the fact that I just had a number one single, that I just wrote this, that I was the artist. Everyone only wanted to put me in the box of being a songwriter here, which was fine. But even then, like, you know, it opened a couple of doors in regards to, this guy's done stuff, but it wasn't what I wanted to.
Sure.
Which is the theme about, for me, became the theme about all my achievements on that side of things. Like, pats on the back are great and make you feel great, but you're not ever going to build anything from it unless you have a plan. Yeah, no. So what happened was, come back. I started getting really disgruntled with my place here as a songwriter, being the guy behind the guy behind the guy. Anyway, way before that, I got disgruntled with the publisher, and we ended up leaving the publisher. I ended up moving over to Ministry of Sound's publisher, who heard some of my stuff. A guy named Phil Mitchell, friend of mine, he heard what I was doing. He's like, "Oh man, I know GT, who was Groove Terminator from back in the day in Adelaide. He's doing heaps of stuff over at Ministry now. I really want him to hear your stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, here's a link. Tell him to get it." Simon, who's GT, heard it. Was like, let's catch up, let's have a meeting, and he was courting me for a deal to come over as a top liner. So my previous deal was signed as part of a songwriting production team. They wanted to bring me over just as a top liner, just as a songwriter for myself, and I was like, sure, like, you know, this Ministry of Sound, like,
it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, you know, I'll come over. I ended up signing a deal with those guys. They gave me a big advance, not a big advance. They gave me some money that. And through all this period, this is like a 6-month period. It's not like it doesn't happen overnight. So I'm slowly getting disgruntled as a songwriter here in Australia. Like, it's like, why be this person behind the scenes? Like, you know, at this point, we're writing for even more important people. We start writing for Marcia Hines. We've been doing these endless sessions with Danni Minogue. We're doing all of these sessions. Like, I mean, I remember vividly doing a session for Danni, going to one of the hotels in Sydney and like spending my last like $5 on coffee on like the Starbucks in the city, and then going up to her private suite, and we've got like, you know, champagne, and I'm just hoping she takes us to the corporate level for lunch, because I've got no money for like, but you know what I mean? It was like, it's this big, that's what I mean. Like, the industry is this big, it's this big curtain that if you put in the work, if you put in the work and you're talented, if you are willing to really, 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 really grind out, opportunities will come. But it's hard, man.
Do you think it wears most people out?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I heard once. I remember people was like, "You need 10 years in the industry. You need 10 years in the industry before you become a success." I mean, I can confidently say probably I'm nearly coming up to 20. If you look at it, like from when I first got pulled out of high school by Michael Browning, music manager, who ironically went on to he had something to do with Studios 301 record label back then, which I'm the GM on now. So it's like it's funny how the world works.
It's a small industry, right?
Yeah, it's really small.
What's interesting, mate, is like Australian music seems to be really tough. Like good talent out of Australia has to go to the States, it seems. Like look at the likes of Sia, right? Like what do you think? If you had to bottle it up from your perspective of what you know now, because obviously you've progressed into the music business. You're the GM of Studios 301, and you've learned through your own experience the business of music.
Yeah.
So she's phenomenally talented.
Yeah.
But what do you think has been the key to someone like her breaking free of this kind of this constant struggle and being this worldwide success?
I think like anyone. I mean, my story is probably, for people that I look at like Sia is probably only 2 to 5% inspiring as opposed to what someone like Sia has been through.
Okay.
In regards to her artistry, I mean, from what I know of her, she spent many years as a writer here and as an artist trying to make it. Was over in the UK to some limited success, and then was all but kind of winding down her artist career and moving towards a songwriter when she started to blow up.
Wow.
So that really changed her trajectory as well. So I mean, but she's put in the hard yards, someone like that. And to be honest, I mean, like it's really tough. From where I sit now as someone with a pretty prominent position on what I feel in the industry and seeing a lot and working with all the major labels and working with all the artists. Someone like Sia it's been her path. I wouldn't class her as an export of Australia. I would class her as someone that went overseas and made it. And I think that's the tough position a lot of people from the outside, I suppose, when you look at the industry. I mean, really, it's made up of individuals. And then you've got your big companies, your Sonys, all that sort of stuff. And then you've got your other individuals that go overseas and go and make it. A lot of them, look at Gautier, for instance. I mean, it's undeniable that you can't, there's not a path. It's just a lot of hard work and putting yourself in a situation. It's dedication. It's like, if you do the work, I'm sure you can do it. But doing the work means something completely different every person you talk to.
Well, yeah, it's a different contrast to doing the work in other fields. Like, for example, in the world of finance, doing the work means getting a job at a big bank or a big institution, but you're still making good money. Like, you've got enough to survive. You've got a steady paycheck. They're paying you super. You've got annual leave. Yeah. But I'm sure as a songwriter, I'm sure that they're not going to give you 4 weeks paid off a year to...
No. To be honest, my advice to anyone that's wanting a career that's going to pay them, unless you are willing to do the work, which is really, really, really make it an obsession. I mean, go and become a doctor. Go and become a finance guru. Go get your crypto game on and do something like that. Like, because that's probably going to give you more rewards than trying to be an artist, unless you're up for what that means.
Sure.
And that's the thing. Like, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and probably more tears than anything else to actually come out the other side and be like, okay, we've done this. I mean, that's the thing, because it's a creative pursuit as well. And the biggest laugh about the whole thing is you put music and you put business music in a sentence, and it's like merging these two things that are both at the complete opposite.
Very different.
It's water and oil, mate. It's putting water and oil in a bowl.
But it works, and it's this amazing. All the people that are in the music industry, I take my hat off to, because everyone's a trooper. Everyone goes through it, and to be able to get through it and smile and perform and be amazing artists, it's phenomenal. And the people that you see that have made it, like, depending on what your definition of made it is.
Sure.
I mean, the people that are in positions are, they've got to cash in while they can, and they've got to ride it while they can.
Because you never know when the gig's going to be up, right?
Yeah, no, totally, and that's the thing. And I think, and Australia is like, you know what Australia is to the world. Australia is like what Perth is to the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I mean, we may be successful out here, we may be doing our own thing, but no one on the East Coast cares about Perth.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way.
No,
I mean,
you're right.
But you go to Perth and everyone in Perth's got this big chip on their shoulder, like, oh, you're from the East Coast, you're from Sydney. We need to make sure that you know who we are, that we're just as good. And in Sydney, you don't find people running around going,
trying to prove something.
Oh, you know what? We're better than the Perth people. Like, that would never come out of anyone's mouth. It's just it's just like the way Australians are about. If you go to LA, we need to show people in LA that we're great. We're going to do things like at these Australian events in LA, like that means something. Like, just be amazing at what you do and go there and do your thing. Like, it doesn't matter. No one in LA is going, oh, you know what? We want to make sure that these Australians know that we're
the best.
No, just be amazing. Like, so the Sia thing, I'm bringing it back to the Sia thing. Sure. She's just phenomenal at what she does. No one cares that she's Australian.
Australians care.
We claim that.
Yeah.
But the Australian music industry didn't claim her until she was crazy famous.
Correct.
And I think that's part of the problem, mate. And I think that it seems to be this kind of, for lack of a better term, bit of a boys' club. There's like this induction process of you have to put in all these hard yards before you can get the opportunities and work towards this kind of bigger picture of success.
Well, yeah.
How do these people get away with paying people like talented people that are doing songwriting for these huge names peanuts when the other artists are making good coin off it?
Well, it's one of those things where it's like anything. If you're okay, let me pose the question back to you. Sure. If you didn't have this company and all of the things that surround you, but you were just a dude that wanted to get into a position like what you are now, what would you do to make it?
You hustle, yeah. So I remember when I started, I was 19. All through my school life, I wanted to be a vet. Ever since I was a kid, I wrote about this in my book as well. And I was never told what I needed to do to become a vet. What subjects I needed to study, what marks I needed to get, how much dedication was actually required. And by the time I actually discovered that, it was too late. Yeah. I realised that I hadn't set myself on the right trajectory in order to achieve that. And in hindsight, I actually didn't have the behavioural characteristics or the traits that would have made for a good vet anyway, given that I'm more of a dominant and influencing personality. And it seems like similar to your journey. Like when you were coming up, you were kind of just relying on your talents, and you were like you had a lot of ambition and drive, but you hadn't learnt about all the other stuff yet that was important. Like you don't know what you don't know. And it was when I left school. Now, shit, what am I going to do? So I went and got a job as an insurance telesalesperson working for Westpac. Yeah. And we were part of this team called the Financial Advice Centre, and it was basically an internship to make financial advisors. And it set me on this trajectory into this career. And then when I actually wanted to go get an advice role where I was actually giving advice, I basically door knocked until someone said yes. I just wouldn't take no for an answer. And yeah, I can definitely see the contrast. I guess that the big difference is I was getting paid. And I was getting paid handsomely for my efforts. Yeah. And that was a big motivating factor. I think if that was removed, would I have continued to do that without the remuneration that correlated with my efforts? Yeah. Definitely not. I hand on heart would say that I couldn't be a musician. I couldn't have done what you did.
Yeah, but I think we're not comparing apples and apples here. I think when you get creative types like musicians and you get
passionate.
Yeah, and then you get the other side of it, and you get how would you describe it? I'm not sure how you would describe it, but you get the finance guys. They're on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I think the music industry knows that it's dealing with essentially 100% creative type. So you can, passion plays a much bigger part.
I agree. Yeah, it's a different form of currency, I think.
Well, I think you know what kind of prepared me a little bit, especially for this incarnation. Or like I said, like I always speak about my journey from the last 7 years and then before that. Like, you know, most of what I've talked about has been before that, which is really cool. But like being in recruitment, and you know, I remember when I first got into recruitment, I swear I moved to Perth and it was in the boom, and I interviewed in like nearly every building on St. George's Terrace until I got a job. Like I was just like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. And it was just like, just grind it out. I mean, and I met with the first company that I met with Robert Walters, Financial. And I met with he must have been the general manager there. He sat me down. And the first thing he said to me was like, do you know how to eat shit? And I'm like, sorry? And he's like, do you know how to eat shit? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, listen, being a recruiter is all about eating shit with a smile, because you're going to come up against all of these people on both sides. You know, essentially, you know, recruitment is essentially you're the middleman. You're dealing with a job and you have to find the people, or you've got the people and you don't find the job, or you've got nothing and you create the demand on both sides. But then you're dealing with all the personalities and, you know, people that are going to do what people do.
Sure.
Because, and he's like, you know, you've got to be able to handle the rejection day in, day out, because all you're going to get is rejection and disappointment and all that sort of stuff. And you've got to smile through it and continue on. So do you know how to eat shit with a smile? And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Which was cool because that was the first interview that I had.
Sure.
And it really kind of set me up. And I think...
Did you get the job with him?
No. I think the music industry is kind of the same. And it's, you know, if you're someone that takes things personally, I mean, that's cool. And it's really hard to not, because it's an art. But if you are persistent and if you know what you want, you've got to wade through the bullshit.
And I think that's a good lesson for life, mate. I think the common theme for, I guess, the most inspiring people that you've seen on a journey, and the people we've spoken about on the podcast before, that being talented doesn't determine your success.
Yeah.
You've got to be determined, and it's that sheer determination to pursue your goal, your destination, that passion is ultimately what's going to get you where you need to go. I think that's an important point, that you have to be determined. And just push on in spite of it. There's always going to be people that are going to bring you down, like that publishing company that was trying to bring you down when you were riding the wave of your Malaysian experience, and you've just got to push on in spite of it. There's always going to be haters and people in your life that are going to try and limit your success.
Well, yeah, you know what? I think what balanced me out was the fact that I know what balanced me out was the fact that I think before I started the journey, the second, like this reincarnation of me, I'd let a lot of the bullshit go in my life and kind of understood who I was. But for me and what made sense to me and for what I subscribed to, I had started to understand life a bit better and started to understand that, you know, I know people talk about their haters and all that sort of stuff, and I mean, I cringe when I see people mention it on social media and all that sort of stuff, because if you truly understand the journey, if you truly understand life, you know that the positive and negative are inseparable.
Sure.
And they both come.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah. So I mean, like when I see the haters, I'm just like, come on, like,
just let it go.
We get it. Just like, you know, it's part of life. It's like it's a big part. You just have to. It's what you focus on. Like, there's always going to be like I said, I could have been at the bottom of Elizabeth Street at Starbucks, spending my last $5 thinking, okay, I'm fucked. But upstairs waiting for me was the opportunity of a lifetime for me in my career at that time to place a song with an artist that I would have hoped would have increased my value. So I mean, it all depends on what you've got to do. I mean, I honestly believe that where I sit now as someone that's someone in the industry, especially on the business side, I mean, last year I released more music. I released more music as an artist than I had in the 35 years preceding that.
Wow.
So
Really?
I'm still doing stuff as an artist. It's just that people may not know or may not understand, or it's that I don't push that on people because I wear so many different hats. It's like, it depends on the hat I'm wearing.
What was funny is that it took me a while to connect the dots of this whole kind of Boswell journey that you started and you've been crafting. And then I see all this stuff posting, like, oh yeah, Boswell on the ARIA charts and this and that, and there's all this stuff featuring. And it's funny that for your journey has led you to be a very down-to-earth person. Like you've never had a chip on your shoulder. You've always been a very approachable person, always wanting to give, and yeah, I think that you learnt very early on in your career that you've got to give to get.
Oh man, I learned that you just got to swallow it. I mean, like it's really easy for it to get out of hand, and you know, there's been times in my life where it has been and especially when I was trying to be a writer and an artist, because I got to check the artist at the door, because I need to, where I ended up getting with songwriting, especially if I'm in a co-write with an artist, is like judo.
Yeah, okay.
It's just like I need to use their momentum to get to the finish line, because the more I fight with my idea's the best and I'm the alpha in this writing session, they're not going to do anything. No. I might get a great song at the end of the day, but if that artist
it's not a good experience.
If that artist is not invested, and this is what brings it back to what I was saying about making sure that when you move forward with the people around you, the people in your team, you pick the people that you're working with and you all find a vested interest. The people that you're working with, you need to give them some sort of buy-in. Because without a buy-in, whether it's personally, professionally, you don't have them.
There's got to be a purpose, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's like if we were to do something together, and I'm trying to think of what would be a good analogy. I don't even know, but like just making sure that someone takes ownership.
Sure.
Because for instance, you could take an artist, you could create something for them, and it's what, you know, to be honest, it's what the labels do with a lot of the artists, or what they used to do. I'm sure they're getting it right now, because I mean, the Australian music industry is really in a healthy state. But I feel like the first round of artists that they brought out, they have what they want them to be. They bring them through the shows, they bring them back. They've already got the structure. They've already got all of the TV appearances that they need to do. They've already got all the radio appearances that they need to do.
The marketing strategy is done.
All the strategy, everything's done. They just need to fill that. They just needed to fill that with artists.
It was like a cookie cutter kind of approach.
Yeah,
right?
and lots of the artists that I used to work with, I mean, from being on the other side, were completely disgruntled. They didn't have the buy-in.
It's not them.
But it was a good paycheck for them.
Sure.
They get to be famous. They get to do all that sort of stuff. So it's cool. But there was a lot of those artists, their trajectory stopped because there was a disconnect somewhere. You know, honestly, I can tell you a lot of the artists that I used to write for weren't happy with the direction of what the label wanted to do for them. Like, and I was always be like, wow. And then for me, there was a decision. It was like, do I write the songs that the artists want me to write for them? Or do I write what the brief has been given to me by the A&Rs? And that's a tough position.
Can you find like a happy medium in between?
Well, the answer was trying to find a happy medium.
Sure. But sometimes that's hard.
That's learning the hard way as well, because like, of course, you know, we're all friends. I'm friends with these guys. I'm friends with, you know, these artists. That's great. I'm doing what they want to do. Get to the label and I wouldn't want a bar of it. No, completely. I don't want this. How can I sell this? Like, songs are cool, but you're not that artist.
Yeah, I get
like,
you.
So it is a business, and if you, like, at the end of the day, it's business.
It's interesting. So, mate, what do you think has been the most valuable lesson that you've learned through your whole career in the world of music?
I think there's been a whole bunch of lessons. I mean, I've mentioned one is just making sure that the people that you work with, you know, you've got buy-in. You don't have buy-in, then someone's only ever going to be an employee, or someone's only ever going to be that person that you work with. Or even, you know, even managing up, you have to have the buy-in of those people as well. I mean, as someone that kind of sits, manages down and manages up, you've got to have a buy-in from everyone.
Sure.
A persistence thing, and it's a hard work. Like it's funny. Like I grew up with the mantra, and my best friend used to say this to me all the time. We used to laugh because we were those kids growing up. I mean, I grew up in Marina Terrace. Football was a way out, and we used to be. We were good. We were athletes. We were good at everything we did. My best mate John, he always used to say, "There's no substitute for raw talent." And so, we used to have all these wild, crazy kid mantras that we used to have, and that was the biggest one. And that's what I honestly thought. There was no substitute for raw talent, and all I needed to be was just be the best.
And I think that's what the world teaches us.
Yeah, but that's not the case, man. Like it's persistence. Yeah. It's making sure that you get up and you try to knock it out of the park. Like every single time. And, if you have a shit day, that's cool. I mean, but you can't just write it off. And there's so many times where I've tried to do that. And for some reason or another, I've been pulled back. And I'm really thankful that I've been able to kind of, reassess and realign and move forward again. To a point where, like I said, at the point where I'm at now, I feel like there's not one thing that I look back in my life that I've done that I say that I don't call on the experience of that every day. Whether it's been playing sport, working in a team, whether it's been working in recruitment, doing all the grind as a songwriter, as an artist, I call on all of those skills and everything that I've learned across all of the industries, across all of everything that I've done in my job every day.
And you can't teach that experience. I don't think.
No, that's time in the game.
That life experience is worth tenfold of kind of a traditional learning experience in university or something like that.
And I think I think sometimes the advantage of a certain naivety, like the advantage of being naive in certain situations that you get from not knowing and not being told, this guy is to be respected, this guy is to be whatever. If you just attack things fearlessly, like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Exactly. I like that. That's great advice.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, Malaysia was like that. Sydney was like that. I mean, even in regards to my very, very steep learning curve at 301, it's been like that. It's just like, we can't do that. Why can't we do it? Let's do it. Well, we need to call this person. Let's do it. Like, it's just trying, because the worst that can happen is, what is the worst that can happen?
Exactly right.
You're not going to have, the worst that can happen is that it's not going to happen. And if it's not happening already, then
what do you
have to lose? You haven't lost anything.
True. So the latest stage of your life, mate, of being now the GM of Studios 301, which give us a bit of background on Studios 301. It's obviously a big brand that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, you know what? We are arguably the longest running studio in the world, on par with Abbey Road. We're actually a little bit older. The only difference is that Abbey Road has always stayed in the one spot.
Sure.
We've moved. This is probably our fourth time we've moved. Largest recording studio and leading recording studio brand in Australia. What we're essentially building is a dinosaur to the industry. So I say that in a good sense, in terms of large format studios and top tier studios of the likes of what we are building now do not exist anymore. Wow. No one is building these in a commercial sense.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, your rich sheikhs and all that sort of stuff overseas, they're all building those for personal interest.
Yeah,
but in Australia, what we're building doesn't exist. Wow. We'll be the only top tier studio in Australia of its size. So we are industry leader. We'll be the best studio in Australia. We already have that reputation. This build is solidify that.
And what's the aim? Is it to bring international recording artists to Australia to start building the name and getting that reach?
Well, I think by default, to the top end of the market, we will continue to have the not monopoly, but we are already known as, for internationals, for high end guys, we're already known as the standard. What it is, and we're very, very, very fortunate to have Tom, who is our owner, to have his vision of what he's building. He's basically gifting Australia this top tier facility that we don't currently have. Like he's for reasons that are his. He's building this thing that's going to be phenomenal.
He's got that vision.
Yeah, you know, man, he's always been a pioneer in the music audio industry in Australia. I mean, like he's arguably Australia's most successful music import across, you know, on par with the amount of money that he's generated from the music industry is on par with AC/DC. Like, probably more.
Phenomenal.
Wow.
So, but he doesn't get spoken in like in regards to that when people in the mainstream.
Sure.
So, you know, he created sound engineering education around the world and franchised that around the world. Like he was the guy that created SAE.
Wow.
You know, he's a very successful guy, and this is his passion project. And yeah, that's the business. That's the business for us. I mean, we are the standard for audio engineering and studios in Australia.
So do you think that's going to create more opportunity for kind of up-and-coming artists and to allow us to export more good quality talent?
Well, hopefully that's the goal. That's the goal. For me, it's trying to create access points for up-and-coming and buzz artists at the moment as well. And like I said, because we are such a top-tier facility, I mean, look at us like the Versace or like a 5-star, 5-6-star hotel. Not everyone that wants to go on a holiday can afford it.
Sure.
What I'm trying to do with our brand and what we have successfully done in the last couple of years is create access points along the way where people can access our brand and access our facilities and do that as well. I mean, my goal for the business is for us to be the center of the music audio community as a whole in Australia. Be the very epicenter of that, not just for the top tier artists.
Sure.
For everyone across the board.
Even for podcasters like us.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, what my vision is for. We have all of that. What we're building completely speaks for itself, and we will continue to have all of the top tier and the high end of the business. Like I said, what my aim is to create access points for medium-sized acts to come through, and also create a really aspirational piece for up-and-comers and buzz artists and all that sort of stuff where they may not have the money to work in Studio One or work with our producer and our team, but there are certain services that they will have access to, and that will create a gateway, hopefully, for them to be like, oh, wow, like, we can do this, we can work with that. So, I mean, just to make our brand more accessible.
Fantastic.
So for someone who's totally outside of the music industry, how does Studio 301 work? How does it function from the day to day?
In a very basic level, I mean, if I could break it all the way down in a very basic level, we have two sides of the business. We're a recording studio, and we are a mastering studio. So the mastering industry, in really layman's terms, we have this on our website. So I'll lift it straight from there. If you're baking a cake, mastering would be the icing. So mastering is the final step in preparation for your songs to be ready to be consumed by ears. So we have the best mastering engineers in the country. We've got a great roster of those guys. They're all in-house, and you send your songs in, and we master them for you.
Fantastic.
On the other side of that, we are the 5-star hotel of recording studios.
That's the physical studio.
That's the physical
band
studio.
comes in there, or the singer comes in there.
If you've watched Get Into the Greek and all those old school studio movies, all of the Dave Grohl stuff. We're building those studios. We've got the $1 million desks. We've got the big rooms. We've got an orchestral space. We've got like other medium-sized rooms. We've got smaller suites. We've got a room for nearly anything.
There's access points for everyone.
Yeah,
phenomenal. Well, mate, look, it was really inspiring to hear your story. I think it just shows that dedication is really the cornerstone of success. And it's just about continuing to hustle, continue to follow your passions. And ultimately, if you stick to what you're good at, then things will start to pay off.
I don't think necessarily stick to what you're good at, but definitely have a swing at the majority of things, because by order of elimination, I think you'll get to what you're good at. You know what? I think it's something that we could literally sit here and have an 8-hour conversation about all of these things. I mean, like, it's something that I'm very passionate about as far as talking to people about just pursuing what it is that they want to do. I think the whole lesson in it all is you just have to have clarity on what you want to do. Because, I mean, from what I take and people always come to me when I talk to people about they don't know what to do in certain scenarios. I'm like, go home, write a list, give me 100 reasons why you should, give me 100 reasons why you shouldn't. Guaranteed you will find 100 reasons for both. What you are left with is what you want to do. And once people figure out in life what they want to do and what their calling is, the rest should be the hard work and the hustle.
Correct.
But if you don't, it's going to be very hard if you don't.
And we teach the same thing, mate. I think far too often people are so busy, they get so caught up in their day-to-day that they don't take that time to think about what they really want. And it's important. You got to take that step back. You got to reflect. And I think important is take the time to really understand your why. Because I think by listing out the pros and cons in such high detail, you will have complete clarity.
I mean, I was really, really lucky to have kind of been set down a path by my best mate, John, in regards to trying to figure that out.
Sure.
Some people, it might take something really profound in their life to happen for them to be set down a path, or for them to actually change or do that sort of stuff. But I was lucky that someone pulled me in and was like, "Hey, man, this is what I'm doing now. Are you interested or not?" And I was like, "That makes a lot of sense." Like, I want to learn more, and
here you are.
Yeah.
Mate, it's been phenomenal. I really appreciate your time. Anyone who's watching who wants to get more involved in terms of the music industry, wants to have some studio time with Studio 301, feel free to reach out to Ron and his team. Mate, I appreciate you giving us some time and telling us your story. It's been very open and honest, and I think everyone can take something from that. So,
awesome. Thanks for coming on board, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
And join us next time for Enjoy the Journey podcast.
And next time we'll be
in Studio 301. It'll be professionally mastered with all the icings.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic.
Plenty of icing.
Plenty of icing. Catch you later.